friends, I am Dolores Williams of DWSU, Stand Up. I want to thank my sponsors for making these podcasts possible. Pernicanas Ristorante has been serving pizza and homemade pasta and rolls in San Diego since 1946. The restaurant is located at 9933 Mercy Road at Scripps Parkway. You can get special catering and events. For the best real estate service in San Diego, contact Paula Witzel at San Diego County Real Estate, 619-585-0945. Go to www.lealrealty.com or Paula at realestate.com. Henry A. Martinez is the change needed in Chula Vista. He is running for the city council in District 3. He is the only homeowner running in this race. He is a 32-year Navy veteran, decorated Afghanistan war veteran. Mr. Martinez is an honest man of high character. Our district needs a person that is 100% committed to the community of Chula Vista. www.martinez4citycouncil.com. Arthur Schaefer, organizing director, mass resistance, and effective international pro-family group, fighting for 25 years the LGBT agenda, indoctrination of our children, stop the drag queen story hours, corrupt sex ed curricula, and bad legislation across our country. Arthur Schaefer can be reached at 781-474-3005 or Arthur@massresistance.com. Thank you. You are in for a treat today. Please be sure to watch the podcast. Hello, friends. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to DWSU Stand Up. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will? Today, friends, I have the privilege of introducing you to a very special lady. Now, I want to thank my audience. Before I do that, I'm so excited about this interview today, but each of you who come back every week and listen to my podcast, I want to thank you because it is by God's grace that we're here and only by his grace. But today, I have the privilege of introducing you to a wife, a mother, a public school teacher for 28 years, a defender of children and this country. Rebecca founded For Kids and Country. She is a faithful woman of God who is not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And Rebecca, I want to congratulate you on your wonderful speech at the Republican convention. That was excellent. I missed your speech and I looked at all of it, but it was wonderful as was the convention. But today, my audience and friends, I want to ask you to help me welcome Miss Rebecca Friedrichs. Rebecca, how are you today?
I am doing great. How are you, Dolores?
I am blessed. I am really blessed. I'm just so thankful that you took this time and you came and spoke to our women's club at the VIP, and I couldn't get enough of your message. And so I'm just thankful to have this opportunity to share for you to share with my audience today.
Well, thank you. And I'm delighted to be here. And anyone who starts her show with "This is the day the Lord hath made" has my attention. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I just want to say real quickly that, every single week when Kim and I record together, God shows up and God picks who I'm going to talk to each week. It's beyond my control. And so he picks the person, he picks the subject each week. So I want to start out with discussing with you, brother. Now, you started the organization For Kids and Country. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, so I was a teacher for 28 years in California public schools, and I would still be there today, sitting on the floor with my kindergartners. I loved my job. I miss my students so much, it hurts. I can't tell you how much I wish I could still be with them. But the problem is that our schools have been infiltrated and taken over by Marxists who claim to be teachers and claim to be unions, and they are not. And so I left the classroom because the Lord asked me to, and I can do more for the children outside the classroom than I can inside. So For Kids and Country is a nonprofit, and we formed in order to help parents and teachers and faith leaders and others who care about children to come together, stand together for what's right for children. And our goal is to restore our schools and our culture.
Oh, that is great. You know, thank you for answering God's call, because he knows what's needed, and he knew where he needed you to be. And so that's a blessing for our children and for our country. Now, adopt a teacher. Tell us about that also.
I'm so glad you asked about adopt a teacher. So I'd say about 95% of America's teachers, maybe 90%, have no idea that their unions are corrupt. And so teachers are paying, literally, just educators alone are paying close to $5 billion with a B annually in dues to the unions. This is money the unions collect tax-free. And then they use this money to fund the far left agenda, they will only fund politicians who are pro-abortion, politicians who are pro this Marxist agenda. The teachers' unions are for defunding the police, abolishing ICE. They are for this radical sex ed that has entered our schools. And don't let anybody say to you, oh no, you're just being a prude or you're a homophobe. Oh, no. They are teaching our children about, I don't even know if I could say it on your show, but that they should have anal sex in order to avoid pregnancy. It's all about running around having all kinds of sex and avoiding pregnancy. It's an attack on our religious liberties. It's an attack on childhood innocence. It's an attack on parental authority and rights. They've even pushed in many states so that parents cannot access their own child's medical records once the kids hit age 14. This is just, it's pure evil. And so that's why we fight it.
That is great. I'm well familiar with that fight.
And you know what, Dolores, my brain got lost. I forgot you asked me about adopt a teacher. So I went into all that and didn't tell you.
No. You know what? That's fine, because one of your articles that you wrote that I'm going to mention talks about that. And that's perfectly fine.
Good. I'm glad. But I want to tell them real quick, if they go to our website, forkidsandcountry.org, they can click on the menu item, adopt a teacher. There's a 3-minute flyer they can read. It's easy. The basic idea is, since 90% of teachers don't know that they are the ones funding this radical agenda that's destroying their profession, destroying the kids in our country, I'm asking everyone who cares to adopt every teacher they know and to educate them. And I teach them how to do that on the website.
That's a great idea. That is, you know what, that needs to get out to every parent. So parents can adopt teachers, especially those of us who are Christian and those who care about maintaining God's balance and what God would have us do, and not all of this craziness that's going on in our society. Yeah.
Exactly. And if those parents have pastors who have courage, if you have any pastors that are listening, please, pastors, have courage. God says, be courageous. He tells us over and over, don't be afraid. Yet we have so many pastors and churches who are too fearful to stand up to this evil. So if you're connected to a good pastor, go to that pastor. Imagine if a whole church adopted teachers. Imagine, you would change your entire community overnight.
My goodness. Just think if we did that in this country.
Yes, that's my goal and my prayer.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll be praying for that and join you in that endeavor. That is great. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is your case with the Supreme Court. And that was amazing. And so will you tell us about your case that went to?
Sure. So for my entire career and since the 1970s, all teachers who are trapped in a union, so if your school district's unionized, which almost every public school district in the country is unionized, we were all trapped and we were all forced to pay the unions. So even if we were non-members, the unions told the public, oh, they don't have to be members and they don't have to pay dues. Well, that's a lie. We didn't have to be members, but we had to accept their representation, and we didn't have to pay dues, but we had to pay fees. So even if you were a non-member, for example, my husband was a non-member, he was still paying $1,200 a year in fees to the teachers union, a union he didn't want, a union that abused him, a union that filed grievances against him when he was director of the school. So our case was fought to end forced unionism. So people are still forced to have the monopoly representation of unions. We're still fighting that through other cases, but our case ended the forced, people being forced to pay the unions. So now every government employee in the nation, teacher, firefighter, VA, DMV, wherever you work, you don't have to pay the unions anymore. And if you don't know how to get out, all you have to do is go to our website for Kids and Country, click on Teacher Freedom and Protections, and it teaches everybody, not just teachers, how to get out of those, out of paying those unions.
Wow. That, you know what, that is something that every person should take advantage of. If they are working in a school system or government system, and if they're paying dues to a union that, and I don't know of any union that lines up with the people of God.
Precisely. And these unions, look, I know a lot of people that they don't understand a lot of the politics, but they know they're against abortion. These unions are 100% funding the abortion industry, working with Planned Parenthood. So even if that's your only issue, quit paying the unions, because you're funding, you know, we're all going to stand before God someday, and we're going to have to answer for what we've done. And if we know the truth that an organization we're funding is funding the slaughter of millions of babies, or funding a sex education program that is teaching, the Bible says it's better for you to have a millstone about your neck and thrown in the deepest sea than to cause one of these little ones to sin against the Lord. Well, if you're paying and funding an organization that's teaching little children to engage in oral on anal sex and to sleep around and do all this, and it tells them that their parents don't know their gender, and there's really an unlimited number of genders, when God said he created us male and female, you're funding things that are against your own beliefs. You're funding things that are against God and what he's taught us. So we really all have to take a look on the inside and ask the Lord to give us the courage to stand up and do what's right and stop funding these organizations.
I know, you know, the children that's tug at my heart each week. I always try to get a plug in for education and for getting rid of things that are not good for our children. And, you know, and I'll mention this quickly. I'm going to mention it every week if I get a chance. The Black Lives Matter curriculum and the 1619 project. You're a teacher, Rebecca. You know those curriculums should not be taught in our schools. They are bringing in more things to destroy the education of our children and to warp their minds and to hate their country.
Oh, precisely. And Dolores, you have no idea how important it is that you as a Black woman are speaking out on this, because when I speak out on it, I'm called all kinds of names. I speak out anyway. And in fact, Dolores, you might not have noticed, but I have an editorial on this very thing, on the 1619 project. And it's the National Education Association that worked together with the New York Times and with with several organizations, ACLU and others, and Southern Poverty Law Center. And they bring all of this, these destructive, anti-American, anti-family, anti-God curricula into America's schools. It is destroying America. As I said in my speech at the RNC, our founders taught us very clearly that the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated and moral citizenry that can self-govern. So what these unions and their pals are doing through 1619, through BLM, and through all of these Common Core and all of these different curricula is they're indoctrinating our children against Judeo-Christian values, against God, against America. Why? Because they want to undermine our republic. They want to turn us into socialists. And that always leads to communism. These are Marxists. They don't care about us. They don't care about our country, and they must be stopped. You are 100% right that we need to stop these things in our schools. And Dolores, you mentioned something too about the different things in education. One of the things I like to help people to understand is Henry David Thoreau, who we used to study in our schools when we had classical education, stated this: there are thousands hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. So we, for Kids and Country, we're striking at the root. The root is the teachers' unions. Well, the Marxists who claim they're teachers' unions and their friends, Southern Poverty Law Center, Planned Parenthood, ACLU, this huge coalition of about 200 groups who are destroying us. So instead of just fighting different things up here, every little thing that comes along, the chaos, we're fighting them. So our goal is to get them out of our schools. Why are all those organizations in our schools? And why are schools being run by labor unions? Makes no sense. We need to get them out.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. But more people need to know that. And anyway, I hit my head and banged my head and said, Lord, you know what needs to happen. And we know that this is evil, 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 just like all these rioting that's happening in the street. They're Marxists.
Yes.
They're communists, they're socialists. And I said too, yes, this election really is the most important one in our country's history. Now, some people will disagree with me. Oh, you get into, yes, we have to get into politics. Christians cannot separate themselves from politics.
Yes.
And we can't claim to be Christian and vote for people who are against our values. We cannot.
Precisely, Dolores. And you know what? It was the Marxists. They have been infiltrating our country now for over 100 years. They came up with this list of 45 goals to take over America by 2020. I'd be happy to send you the list. They have accomplished 44 of those goals. That list was read into our congressional record in 1963. What in the world is our congressman doing? What in the world's been going on that we haven't been aware that this was happening? So, Dolores, what you're talking about is so important. So first of all, these Marxists have been infiltrating our country for over 100 years. They call it the Long March of the Left. And they've been very open about it. A gentleman wrote a book called The Naked Communists in the 50s. In that book, he listed 45 goals of the Communist Party on how they wanted to overtake America by 2020. This is 2020, people. Of those 45 goals, they have accomplished 44 already. This list was read into our congressional record in 1963. So my question is, why haven't we been awake and fighting this? Because there's some people in our Congress who aren't for our country. You mentioned this is the most important election ever. I agree with you 100%. We finally have a president who's saying, I'm not putting up with this stuff. I'm standing up for America and I'm standing against communism. Thank God for him. So what happened, Dolores, you said that so many Christians say, oh, we can't get involved in politics. That is so wrong. If they believe that. What the Marxists did was they came in and they told us, you can't talk about religion. You can't talk about politics. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to shut us up. They wanted to shut up anybody who has Judeo-Christian virtue. What do the Marxists do? All they talk about is religion and politics, anti-religion, and their leftist agenda. We must talk politics. Let me just take you to a biblical example. Nehemiah. Read the entire book of Nehemiah if you don't believe we should be involved in politics. It's just one example of many in the scriptures. The scriptures full of politics. David, Esther, all over the place, politics. So Nehemiah, working for the king, leaves his position to go be governor to help rebuild the wall for the people of God. That's politics. If you don't get involved in politics, politics will be involved in you. And what will happen is the evil will take over, will remove our Judeo-Christian virtue, and we will lose our country. We'll lose our kids. Marx's goal read about Karl Marx, read The Naked Communist. There's a whole thing in there about Karl Marx, who he was, how abusive he was, how he didn't take care of his family. The whole goal of Marxism/communism is to undermine the family. You mentioned Black Lives Matter earlier. One of their stated goals is to undermine the Western prescribed family structure. What is that? Mom, dad, children, a family. They want to undermine that. Look, if the church doesn't stand up, we're going to lose this country. And we're going to lose the right to read our Bibles. We're going to lose the right to stand and speak out. It's an emergency. People need to stand up. I hope churches will stop believing these lies. And I hope Christians will stand up and do what's right.
You're right. And Christians are under attack as we speak. And it's happening. It's happening right now. Now I'm going to move on because you wrote a wonderful book, and I'm privileged to have a copy. I haven't read all of it yet, but I got to go read every chapter.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your book, Standing Up to Goliath. I was just blown away by your book and what you did. Tell us about your book, and we want to promote your book and promote everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you, Dolores. So the importance of my book, first of all, this is something that God laid on my heart for several years. You need to write a book, Rebecca, and you need to get it out there. And it needs to be a book that gives voice to the teachers who are voiceless. So those unions have completely silenced the voices of good, loving, and great teachers. So my book is loaded with the testimonies of about 4 dozen teachers from across the country, some parents and some kids. And what we do is we expose the unions for what they really are: abusers, Marxists who are posing as teachers and posing as unions, who are destroying our schools and our culture and our country. So we expose them. I also take people through my story as part of the book. I weave people's stories in and out of my story. And so I tell them a little bit about teaching and about how we had to sue the unions. Our case, Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association and National Education Association, how we sued them and why, and how we went to the US Supreme Court and what happened there, and how the Obama-Biden administration and Kamala Harris actually intervened against us. So we were suing the unions. We were suing the most powerful unions in the country and in our state, California. But thanks to Kamala Harris, the entire state of California stood against us. And thanks to the Obama-Biden administration, the entire country stood against us. So we were called David versus Goliath, which gave us hope because David, in the power of God, won. So that's how I got the title of my book. So I just kind of share that journey. I think what would be most interesting to your viewers and your listeners is I have 3 chapters that tell them about the radical sex ed, who's behind it, what they're teaching our kids. I share things from the curricula. It's shocking. Things I can't even say on airwaves on some radio stations and TV stations, yet they're teaching it to our 5-year-olds and our 11-year-olds. That's evil. So I have 3 chapters on that. I have a chapter on how the teachers unions have completely corrupted the PTA. From the 60s and 70s, they forced the PTA into a stance of neutrality. If you're in the PTA, your dues are paying for this radical agenda too. I have a chapter on the radical discipline policies. I call them anti-discipline policies that are leading to school shootings and that are turning our classrooms into war zones. Teachers out there, they're like, well, how come nobody will help me discipline? It's your teachers union, that's why. And the union will claim, oh, we care about you. That's a lie. They caused all these problems. So I expose all those things in the book. And then I actually, talk to people about what our education system used to be and what it should be and how we can change it and give them hope at the end of the book. And I even wrote book club questions for every chapter that people can find for free on our website. So I'm hoping people will stand together and have book clubs with teachers and parents and faith leaders, and that we can all learn the truth and fight together.
Oh, that is just great. That is just, you're a gift from God and you're doing his work.
Thank you, Dolores, as are you.
Yeah, that's a blessing. Now, I know our time is short, but I want to mention these 3 articles that you wrote in the Washington Times. The first one was union indoctrination of young teachers and turn little kids into social justice warriors. You wrote that last month, Washington Times. And I want to put a link to all three of these articles. And I wanted to mention them because I want my audience to know that you have done the layman's work. You've done the work to put this information out there, and we need to get it out there, and we need to share it. Now, the second article you wrote was how public schools groom kids for sexual predators like Epstein and Maxwell. And these are in the Washington Times. That one was written in July 15th. Now, I want to mention in this particular one, now Charlotte Weber she's the assembly person for my district. And we do have a person, John Moore, who's running against her. But Charlotte Weber is responsible for this sex ed curriculum in our schools because of what she did. We have this sex ed on steroids in California.
Yep.
And we have Shirley Weber to thank for that. And we have a lot of people in the churches and in my community who are voting for Shirley Weber and think she's such a nice lady.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about her that way, but what she did was evil. And she's in the assembly. She votes for every evil bill that passes up in that California assembly, not just her, but everything that comes out of there passed by Democrats.
That's right.
Just be honest. Let's just be honest. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking truth.
Yep.
You can find it out for yourself. Go look up those assembly bills that are passed, and they are evil. Yep. And they're done by Democrats.
You know, you're precisely right, Dolores. And Shirley Nash Weber is the assembly member who sponsored the California Healthy Youth Act. There's nothing healthy about it. It brought comprehensive sexuality education into California, and it is pushing it nationwide. And it brought this radical sex ed into our schools, into our children's minds and hearts. It is very destructive. Shirley Nash Weber was given an award by the Healthy Teen Network, again, not healthy at all, which is a coalition of over 180 organizations who push all of this sexual rights and all of this stuff onto our kids. Healthy Teen Network actually has a lesson on their site right now, 5 tips for your sexual health during COVID-19. I write about it in that article, where they're literally teaching children that they should be sexting, that they should do solo sex, which is masturbation, that they should look at porn, that they should date themselves, and that they should be led to online sex experts to learn about sex toys and things. This is perversion, and this is harm to our children. And Shirley Nash Weber was given an award by these people. Yes, you are 100% right. At the California legislature has a 2/3 Democrat majority that is 100% controlled by the teachers unions and other radical left groups. The California Healthy Youth Act, the sex ed bill, was passed on party lines. It was voted in by all Democrats and one Republican. His name is Rocky Chavez. We all know he's not a true conservative. Yeah. And everyone who voted against this radical sex ed was Republicans. People need to understand, look, they can get upset and say, oh, you're talking politics. Like you said, this is true. The Democrat Party has been completely taken over by these radical leftists led by the teachers unions. People get upset for pointing out the teachers union, but it's true. They're not really teachers. They're not really unions. They're radicals. And the sooner people wake up and stop being, upset that they think we're picking on their favorite party, their party's been corrupted, just like the teaching profession has been corrupted. We need to stand against the corruption.
Yes, and I don't know if you saw all over the news last night, Netflix has put out this little movie, maybe you saw it, these young girls, 11 years old, they're called the Cuties. These little girls it's nothing but pornography, sex, dancing on a stage. I mean, I was just sickening to see that on television.
I saw it. I didn't watch it, but I saw it advertised. I got to tell you something. Netflix. Oh my, I know another gal. I can send you her video if you'd like to see it, but she exposes a lot of the stuff that's on Netflix. It's unbelievable. They had a movie last year, everyone, that portrayed Jesus as a homosexual. Is that not enough? Is that not enough? And last I heard, former President Obama was on their board of directors. I don't know if he still is, but this is ridiculous what Netflix is feeding to our kids in our culture. I would never pay a dime to Netflix. It's time for Christians to, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. It's time for us to stop funding these sorts of outlets, media outlets. Hey, look, if you don't get to watch as much TV, so be it.
Okay. Well, you know what, Rebecca? My God, I can't stop talking. I want to keep talking to you. But you know what? The information is powerful. What we heard today, and thank you for coming, for agreeing to come and be my guest today. I'm just excited to get this information. I just want the whole world to listen to it and to take heed to it and not look at it as politics, but look at it as truth. God sends us truth, and we need to receive his truth and receive his word. So let me thank my audience, and I sometimes I do, but I'm going to thank my audience. But after I thank my audience, I'm going to come back and actually close this in prayer. But to my audience, to each of you who are listening to this podcast, please take it to heart and know that it's a message that's sent to you, not to hurt you, not to harm you, but to inform you so that we are better informed, because I don't take these podcasts lightly, and they come from God. And that's who sends me a message each week. But I want to ask you also, don't forget to subscribe to my station each week. Hit that red button and subscribe. And also, if you want to be a sponsor, you can also be a sponsor. And I have information where you can donate through PayPal to be a sponsor on my show. Would love to have some advertisers on there and just get important messages out like yours. And you can reach me at dwsviewstandup@gmail.com. And basically, that's pretty much it. And thank you again. And Rebecca, please close us in a word of prayer.
I'd love to. Lord, thank you for giving us this time together, and for Dolores and her bold spirit, that she would give her time to prepare these podcasts. It's a lot of work, and that she has such a heart to get the truth out to your people. Lord, your people, you say over and over in your word, constantly telling us, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. And it's because you know, as people, we're often full of fear. Lord, your word tells us you're not the author of fear. You're the author of liberty. So we ask you to give us your courage. We ask you to give us your strength. We ask you to remind us that you told us we'd have to carry our cross. You never told us it would be a bed of roses. You've created beauty all around us. You've given us gifts and talents. You've put us in a free country. It's still free. You've done so much for us, but we have to stand up. Lord, give us the courage to stand up. Lord, give us just your heart and your spirit, so that we won't be able to rest until we're standing up in protection of your children and your truth. Thank you, God, for blessing us with this time together and for your grace. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.